Why did Israel choose not to take the promised land the first time? This is the question we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Deuteronomy on Walking Through the Bible. If you have a Bible with you, turn to Deuteronomy chapter 1. We're going to be reading from verses 26 to 33. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So Deuteronomy chapter 1, beginning of verse 26. Nevertheless, you would not go up, but rebelled against the command of the Lord your God. And you complained in your tents and said, because the Lord hates us, he has brought us out of the land of Egypt to deliver us into the hand of the Amorites to destroy us. Where can we go up? Our brethren have discouraged our hearts, saying, the people are greater and taller than we. The cities are great and fortified up to heaven. Moreover, we have seen the sons of the Anakim there. Then I said to you, do not be terrified or afraid of them. The Lord your God, who goes before you, he will fight for you, according to all he did for you in Egypt, before your eyes, and in the wilderness, where you saw how the Lord your God carried you, as a man carries his son, in all the way that you went until you came to this place. Yet for all that, you did not believe the Lord your God, who went in the way before you to search out a place for you to pitch your tents, to show you the way you should go, in the fire by night, and in the cloud by day. Israel is in the plains of Moab, receiving the second telling of the law of Moses here in Deuteronomy. Through the first 4 chapters of this retelling is the historical prologue, one that would be needed because this generation is not the same one who left Egypt as adults, for that generation died in the wilderness. Thus, if Israel was to have a national identity, they needed to know their history. In the last lesson, we discussed Israel's arrival in Kadesh for the first time and the sending out of the spies to spy out the land of Canaan. The report of the land that these spies brought back was, of course, a good report. It was a land that was filled with milk and honey, a figure of speech denoting a good land, just as God had said. However, with such a glowing report of the land, one would expect that the spies would have concluded that since the land is just as God has told us, that God would fulfill his promises and allow them to take the land. But that is not how 10 of the 12 spies saw it, for their faith was not placed in God, but in themselves and their own strength. Because they had seen the sheer numbers and strength of the people in the land, not to mention the great size of some of the Amorite warriors, they concluded that the Lord hated them and would simply hand them over to the Amorites to be destroyed. Now, why would they have made such a conclusion? Well, it wasn't because they remembered that the Lord had preserved them for about 2 years by that point, or that he sent them manna and quail to eat, or that he sent them water from the rock, or that he protected them in battle from the Amalekites. Those things they seemingly forgot. What could have been on their minds was the many times they murmured against the Lord and his punishment of them for their rebellion. Perhaps they thought that even though the Lord had promised them this land, that in the end he was angry with them for their murmuring and was thus bent on destroying them. This is what happens when we lose sight of God's grace and lack of faith in his promises. For sure, when we sin, God will punish us. But when we do good, God will be pleased. And no matter what, he will fulfill his promises. If God had wanted to destroy Israel by the Amorites' hands, he would have told them. Instead, through the mouth of Moses, God told Israel not to be afraid of the people of the land. The reason they weren't to be afraid is not because they were mightier than the Amorites, but because God was mightier than the Amorites. God would fight for them, just as he fought for them from Egypt until then. If they put their faith in God, they would overcome the Amorites, just as the Lord said. Yet Israel did not believe the word of the Lord. They looked at Canaan and were discouraged. Today, we can look at our lives and become discouraged with all of the spiritual problems that we face. We can think that they are insurmountable to overcome, and that therefore we should just give up. But that is not the attitude that God wants of a Christian. God promises us that he will not allow us to be tempted above which we are able to bear, but will provide a way of escape. God promises to help the Christians through trials and temptations if we put our faith in him and follow him. We can conquer Satan with God's assistance. By ourselves, no, but with God's assistance, yes. The question is, will we place our faith and trust in God? Israel failed this type of test in Kadesh, and in the next lesson we'll find out the punishment for that failure. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Deuteronomy chapter 1, verses 34 to 46, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time.
Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.